Over the last few days, we've noticed here at night time, there's been quite a bit of fireworks going off. And this has been now for the last, probably the last week. And the reason, of course, is because Guy Fawkes Day has just been and gone. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit today about why we here in New Zealand celebrate Guy Fawkes Day. After all, Guy Fawkes himself was supposed to have tried to blow up the British Houses of Parliament. And so it makes you wonder why we actually celebrate that. So what I'm going to do is have a little talk about Guy Fawkes as I remember it, and then just delve into just a little bit of the history on why we have Guy Fawkes Day here in New Zealand. I remember when I was a kid, going back into the 50s, back as far as my memory takes me, I remember always November the 5th was Guy Fawkes Day. And it didn't matter where we were, wherever we lived, whatever happened, the nearby community would always get together, and one of the local farmers or people in the town would have a bit of land where they would build a bonfire. Now, everybody knew about it. Anyone that could offer any bits of wood and branches and whatever would sort of take them along and put onto this bonfire, and they would get huge. They would get these big bonfires. And then sitting atop the bonfire was always the guy. Now, the guy was made out of usually sacking, and the sacks were filled with straw, and it had a face on it looking like a funny little, caricature of a man. During the week, we would make our own little guys, and we would put them in a wheelbarrow, and we would walk around the streets and we'd say, "Penny for the guy, penny for the guy." And anyone that would see us would throw a penny or a threepence or something into the wheelbarrow, rewarding us for our effort making a guy for Guy Fawkes Day. Now, this I'm taking right back to the 50s and maybe into the 60s. I'm not sure when I got to be a teenager, but I always remember this as a kid. And then I remember Guy Fawkes night. Everybody would gather when they lit the big fire, and the kids would come with their own little bags of firecrackers, and they would let off skyrockets and double happies, and sparklers would be sparkling all around the place. And it was quite a good occasion we used to love to celebrate on Guy Fawkes Day. It was always safe. I can't ever remember any kids getting hurt because the parents were always there with them, supervising, just making sure that everyone was okay. And it was a lot of fun. I always remember Guy Fawkes being a lot of fun. Now, over the years, things haven't sort of always been so much fun. I don't know whether parental supervision's become less and less, or whether kids just decide they want to go out and buy their firecrackers and have their own fun. But over the years, the rules on fireworks in New Zealand has changed. I'm not even sure you can still get skyrockets anymore, or the big double happy crackers. I think most of them are just the round, the ones that stand, you stick them in the ground and you light the fire and you get a nice display of fire coming up. And I'm not even sure, I used to get Catherine wheels too that you'd nail to the side of a piece of wood, and it would spin round and round and round when you lit it. But I don't know that those sort of things even exist anymore. But here in New Zealand now, you can only buy fireworks, I think it's 3 or 4 days prior to Guy Fawkes Day. But of course, what happens once they go on sale, people stock up. And here you can hear fireworks going off at different times of the year when someone might have a party. People always stock up so that New Year's Eve there's always fireworks going off out in the community. So it's changed a lot, and you don't see the big communities getting together and having the big bonfires. And what they've been trying to do is get the councils, get the communities to have these organised fireworks displays, and sometimes they have them, sometimes they don't. I haven't really followed up on how successful they've been. But Guy Fawkes is just nothing like it used to be when we were a kid. Now, I have to remember too that when I was a kid, we never ever heard of Halloween. Now, Halloween, I think, is the end of October. Guy Fawkes is the 5th of November. So our big excitement was always leading up to Guy Fawkes Day. And Halloween, I mean, we heard about Halloween and it was about pumpkins and things over in America, but nobody here celebrated Halloween. Well, now it has become a thing, and kids get out and they get their costumes and they go around trick-or-treating, and so that's become more of a thing, and there's become less of a focus now on the fireworks and Guy Fawkes Day. So this sort of prompted me to have a bit of a think about why we here in New Zealand have always celebrated Guy Fawkes. As I said, considering the fact that Guy Fawkes himself was supposed to have tried to blow up the House of Parliament in Britain. So I've done a little bit of research, and I'll have to sort of read some of this because I can't really remember it all. So I'll put my glasses on. So Guy Fawkes was born in 1570 and he lived until 1606. He was also known as Guido Fawkes. While fighting for the Spanish, was a member of a group of provincial East English Catholics involved in the failed gunpowder plot of 1605. He was born and educated in York. His father died when Fawkes was 8 years old, and after which his mother married a recusant Catholic. Fawkes converted to Catholicism and left for mainland Europe, where he fought for Catholic Spain in the 80 Years' War against Protestant Dutch reformers in the Low Countries. He travelled to Spain to seek support for a Catholic rebellion in England, without success. He later met Thomas Winter, with whom he returned to England. Winter introduced him to Robert Catesby, who planned to assassinate King James I and restore a Catholic monarch to the throne. The plotters leased an undercroft beneath the House of Lords. Fawkes was placed in charge of the gunpowder that they stockpiled there. The authorities were prompted by an anonymous letter to search Westminster Palace during the early hours of the 5th of November, and they found Fawkes guarding the explosives. He was questioned and tortured over the next few days and confessed to wanting to blow up the House of Lords. Fawkes was sentenced to be hanged, drawn and quartered. However, at his execution on the 31st of January, he died when his neck was broken as he was hanged, with some sources claiming that he did it deliberately. He deliberately jumped to make this happen. He thus avoided the agony of the sentence. He became synonymous with the gunpowder plot, the failure of which has been commemorated in the UK as Guy Fawkes Night since the 5th of November 1605, when his effigy is traditionally burnt on a bonfire, commonly accompanied by fireworks. Now, we ask why we celebrate Guy Fawkes in New Zealand. In fact, Guy Fawkes Night commemorates the arrest on November the 5th, 1605, of the titular Fawkes, part of the group of English Catholics who had attempted to assassinate the Protestant King James and blow up the House of Lords in what became known as the Gunpowder Plot. So, in summary, where I always thought we were celebrating somebody, and I think celebrating somebody who was trying to blow up the Houses of Parliament, it was actually the House of Lords, we are actually celebrating the arrest of Guy Fawkes, or Guido Fawkes, on the 5th of November in 1605. So, or 1605 I think it was. Yeah, 1605. So I guess when I grew up thinking that it was always strange that we were celebrating someone who blew up the Houses of Parliament, and I thought, now, America never ever celebrates Timothy McVeigh Day or anything else like that when somebody, you know, tries to blow up or successfully blows up a building. So that prompted me to have a look at it and think, well, why do we celebrate that here? And what is the actual true story behind it? So I guess I'm sort of relieved now to think at my grand old age of 74 that we don't actually celebrate his attempt to blow up the House of Lords. We are actually celebrating his arrest, preventing him from blowing up the House of Lords. So for anyone else who's wondered and thought, this is a bit strange, why do we celebrate this guy? It's actually his arrest and his demise that we're celebrating, not the actual fact that he tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament. So anyway, that's my my little ramble for the day. It's sort of a bit off topic, a bit different from what I've normally talked about, but it got into my mind this morning and I thought, now I'm going to have to do a bit of research on this and see what actually happened. So that's my little take and from my bit of research on Guy Fawkes and why we celebrate Guy Fawkes here in New Zealand. Now, I do have to say it is a tradition that is slowly dying off. I didn't mean a pun with that, dying off. But it is a tradition that seems to be lessening in popularity. And obviously, from what I saw this year when I was out and about on Halloween, it seems to have been replaced or being replaced more by the tradition of Halloween. And even though you can get costumes and all that sort of stuff, there is a bit of money involved. In these financial times, it seems absolutely pointless to go out and buy firecrackers, which you set fire to and burn, and there's your money down the drain. And they are getting more and more expensive every year. I think they're imported from China. I don't know whether there's been safety issues with them in the past, but I think these days people just feel that it's not really worth the money they have to pay just to light a little cracker to see it burn for about 15 seconds and then there's a couple of dollars down the tubes. So maybe we will one day see the end of Guy Fawkes, and with that I guess would have to come the end of any sort of fireworks in New Zealand, because I don't think that they're generally on sale outside of the Guy Fawkes period. So who knows? Who knows what the future's going to be? We never know, do we? Anyway, if this is the first time you've been here, thank you for coming. If you've returned after watching a previous video, thank you for coming back. My name is June. I'd like to wish you all a happy week and for you all to take care, stay safe, and I will see you on the next one. Okay, bye.